Hello, hello, and welcome. I am so excited to be here with you today, and I'm very grateful for this opportunity to have a conversation with you and to share the ideas with you that can help you grow, progress, and achieve your dreams. My name is Jana Masik. I am the host of a LinkedIn broadcast Powering Unique You. And I'm here today to have a conversation with you and also my amazing friend and peer in HR industry. This lady is phenomenal. She has progressed her career all the way from the very beginning, from the entry level job, all the way to the executive C suite. And she's the right now Chief Human Resource Officer in Accelerate. She's also People Team Officer and Women Empowerment Enthusiast. She loves talking about leadership development and she loves to strategize careers. I would love to welcome today Gabriela Enriquez. Hello, Gabriela.
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
I am so happy to have you today. And before we jump into our conversation, I just want to make sure we are live. And I believe so. We're live on LinkedIn. So I am happy to have you as you joining in to say hello to us. Now, Gabriela has a ton of tips today for, I think, that can apply to any one of us. So if you do like this message, give us hearts, give us thumbs ups as we dive into it. So, Gabriela, right now you're heading and leading the human resource function in Accelerate, all right?
Yes,
Good. And you're physically in Miami, right?
I am.
You're
Yeah,
in
our office
Florida.
is in Sunrise. Yes,
Yes.
Florida.
Good, good. My fellow Floridian as well. So happy. Now we were talking about when you and I were chatting a little bit ago. We were talking about the career progression and how we'll adjust and how we'll adapt in our careers. And today's topic is really discuss what this new normal workforce look like right now. And I'd love for you to give us a perspective as we dive into this conversation. Then how can people adjust, adapt, and also advance in this type of an environment we are in? So I'd love to hear your perspective on what do you see this new normal, as many people say, look like in the workforce right now.
Definitely. Well, we're definitely not going back to our old normal. I think that's something that can be said and put out there, and people need to, just take in and embrace. A lot of the talk has been in the previous, years, and even this early this year was generations and what millennials bring into to the workforce, and Gen Z's now coming into the workforce. So now you add COVID, and it's just so much, right? Even for the employer side. And then there's a push also for diversity and inclusion. There's just so much going on. So I think the best takeaways are, even from the millennials, is just embracing social media. I think that is important and essential, needs to be done by everybody. I mean, it's right there for the grab. We have this conversation all the time. There is no need now to have to, go to the library and have to search for things and things. It's right there at your disposal. Social media, the internet. We need to utilize these sources. Then Gen Zers are coming in, and with this really strong competitive drive, willingness to jump and do anything, whatever you need, right now, and the urgency to automate everything. So that urgency to everything's at your disposal. I mean, Amazon, you order a package, it's right there the next day, instant gratification, right? So binge watching, I mean, shows, you don't necessarily now have to wait weeks and weeks and months at a time for things. So we need to take advantage and see these trends that are changing and truly adapt to it,
Yeah.
not let it necessarily consume you. So as from an employer standpoint, being able to see this and adapt and be able to please your audience, your employees. And then as an employee, being able to look at the other generations that are coming in, older generations and younger generations, being able to collaborate and continue with that same passion and drive. It really is essential.
I love how you painted this picture for each one of us. Really taking into consideration all of these aspects that shapes the workforce, that shapes the environment around us. Many of those things sometimes fall into category where we would really have, they're coming externally, right? Those conditions like COVID, all the businesses, everyone affected worldwide, everyone have been, put in this strict situation of rethinking, redoing. A lot of businesses had to close out. A lot of businesses had to let go people and furlough. Now, from the employer perspective, as you're coming into workforce, into this type of uncertain, so to speak, circumstances, a lot of things are happening remotely. Much more things are happening, more remote conversations and team buildings. It's that we would segue into adaptation, right? So it's adaptation phase for the employers, for the owners of the company, for the leadership of the companies, because they have to rethink. They cannot operate with the same mentality, right? They have to say, okay, how do we adapt to this environment? And now adaptation of the workforce. And I would say people that are entering in the workforce, you touched on this, the new generation that just got off the college, as well as the people who lost their jobs. How do they adapt to that? What would be your tips on, what maybe can the employees or the people who are entering into workforce, what can they do to be more adaptable?
So for the people that are coming into the workforce, they've already been, in their mind, they've already consumed the information that technology is rising. You need to, go to school for a STEM program. So we're having a lot of grads now with STEM degrees, a lot of technology and engineering. And so being able to cater to them, but at the same time, push your training, for example, Accelerate specializes in automation. But when we first created and came with the idea, we wanted to be a service company for automation. The talent pool was very, very small because it was new, it's innovative. So we had to create our own training program to be able to grow that talent and be able to cultivate it ourselves. So I think as from an employer standpoint, obviously, you need to be able to seek the talent, seek the people, really focus on the values and if culturally they are a fit for your organization, and then tweak and train, in order to be able to do that. A lot of the times you find people that say, I want to do this, but they're only looking for experienced people. And I can't get the experience if I'm not given the opportunity, right? So it's kind of like a twofold. Well, employers need to see this and this sort of cry for help and be able to create training programs to be able to grow their team. And they'll soon find that they're going to be stronger employees, more passionate, more dedicated and devoted to the company because they were given that opportunity. So there's a bit of piece of me that I owe to you. And that, and that continues and thrives. So that's from the employer standpoint. From the employee standpoint, right now, it is really crucial to see this as an opportunity and look at what it is that you do. What is your job? What is your career? Do you love what you do, first of all? And if you don't, this is the time to change it. This is the time to look at what the needs are and take advantage of courses online. There's a lot of LinkedIn courses online that are very easy and attainable and quick to start learning. A lot of boot camps. that will provide, a lot of tech insight and knowledge. So taking advantage of those and being able to shift and make yourself relevant again, I think this is the time to do it.
I love that. You touched on taking responsibility as an employer and investing into talent. And then from the employee perspective, taking the ownership of your development as well. So the employer may offer you some courses, but if that's not what excites you, if that's not what you see in yourself as your career path, you need to take the ownership in developing yourself and investing in yourself. That's truly adapting to the circumstances. And I think all of us need to embrace this lifelong learning attitude, because the technology, I believe, is going to be just exponentially developing constantly. And if we, as you mentioned, if we're not, as employees, not investing in ourselves and learning new ways, learning new things, learning new tech, ways and how technology actually operates, we're going to be irrelevant. We're going to be left behind. And then from the company standpoint, it's so important to also, as you mentioned, to give an opportunity to those that may not have the degree or the skill set. It was really interesting. I want to take your take on the Trump's announcement about the government hiring people without degrees and really prioritizing the skill set. What do you take on that? What do you think about that? How do you think corporates may embrace that also?
I think you see it in the past. Before, it was not necessarily a requirement to have a degree to be able to get your foot in the door and be given the opportunity. More and more as time has progressed, it has been a demand. It truly has been. And not necessarily does a piece of paper to say whether you can do the job, but it does show a bit, as from the employer stand, it shows a bit of that commitment. You were able to follow through, going through a degree, and from an employer that takes a look at GPAs, not just whether you got the degree. It is very important to then see how seriously you took this, and we know that it's a struggle to get that degree. I mean, to go to school and at any age, whether it be you have a family now and you have that as an additional burden, and you have to manage your time, and that says a lot about your character and push. So it is important, but it shouldn't be the only requirement, I think. Definitely, there's a lot of more skills and attributes and positivity that can come from a person that might not have had the opportunity for a degree.
Yes. It comes to the to look for advancements, and as you mentioned, everybody have perhaps maybe financial situation that does not allow you to go and get a degree, but you could show the willingness and show the ownership and learn the skill set, maybe take the courses, take the certifications that will show you and showcase your willingness to grow and desire. I agree with you. I want to do a shout out. We have a couple people saying, Hosea saying hello, good morning from Seattle. We have Adrian showing good morning from Cuba. Adrian, your setup on LinkedIn is not connected to show your name outwards, but we can still see you on LinkedIn here. And he's also saying good subject today. And Adrian saying, I think losing your job in this day after years of work on the same company force, you have to reinvent yourself because you will be entering the highly competitive world. I agree with you, Adrian. You have to reinvent yourself constantly. And you touched on this, Gabriela, that you have to look at, upskilling yourself. And this is adaptability. We segue into this. As you adapt, you also have to adjust, right? Adjust to this new requirements, new environments, and how can people adjust as they enter to the point of Adrian, let's say you've been let go from the company you worked for years. You know exactly what you were doing there. You had your circle of influence in that company. And typically, I see a lot of us when we're in the workforce and we have a stable job, we don't go out and network effectively and deliberately. We don't go
Yeah.
out and build and get other people know about us and build this outside of work environment. So what I found, and as I spoke with many peers, some of the peers that have lost jobs, is that they said, I did so great for my company. I've poured so much. I brought so many sales. I did an awesome things. But the only people that knew about all of these great things and really saw the awesomeness was the team.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that person then was like, oh, and then, she particularly was at the situation is like, nobody really else knows about my skill set and I have to start from scratch. So maybe we can tie that a situation to this adjustment. What would be your recommendation to people? How can they embrace and adjust in this, maybe, let's start from scratch and look for a job after years of experience with some company?
Definitely. So this pandemic and the situation was definitely not unprecedented. It's happened before. It happened with the industrial revolution, creating just different manufacturing processes in the past. So it's happened before. We've been able to overcome change and been able to adapt. This is just another side of it and another step. So we need to be able to do that now. Personally, I think everyone has had a moment where it didn't work with their company, for one reason or another. And then you kind of find yourself in that, well, what now? I gave so much and I did so much, and it's that loss. It's really a grieving stage. It's a really painful loss, and you feel lost. I mean, entirely. You question, you start going back and questioning what things you could have done differently, and there needs to be an opportunity to just take a step back and really meditate and evaluate, the moving forward part. Not necessarily dwell and say, you can easily say, they didn't deserve me. If they didn't see my value, this was not the company for me. I deserve more. I deserve better. So start looking for other organizations and start looking for organizations that have the same values as you do. I think that is very crucial. I mean, as an employer, there's many companies just as us that look for values and prioritize that. When even in the interviewing process, just making sure that we share the same to make sure that we have that culture. So doing the same from an employee standpoint, look for those companies. What company name would you like to work for? And then go back. What exactly do I need to do to get there? What skills are they hiring for? What kind of people are they hiring? Go to LinkedIn and start looking at their employee profiles. What are their backgrounds? Where did they come from? Start working your way backwards towards that, and then work your way towards that path so that you can get there and then, be able to move forward. I mean, definitely, it's not a door. What is it? A door closed? It doesn't mean, it's a new door. It's new segue for another chapter in your career. Definitely, it's not a closed opportunity. It's an opportunity to embrace.
Yes, I like how you mentioned on taking a step back, right? Reconsidering and maybe even giving yourself a space to grieve, like you mentioned. It takes a toll, I think, on the many, and now it's like I've seen the number up to 40 million of people lost jobs. It takes a toll on so many people affected, and it ties in. You have to also consider what your financial situation will be. How do you feed your family if you have a family? There's so many things that tied into that. It's that taking a step back and reevaluating, knowing your value is so important. Just because a company, and maybe I spoke with some peers that have been with the company for 30 years and they were, they were no longer needed. Their role was disseminated. It's really a difficult. It's going to take some time. So I want to encourage you, if you find yourself in this situation, if you may be facing that type of a how do I start from scratch situation, know your value. Give yourself some time. Give yourself some grace. Give yourself some, some loving. Even speak kindly to yourself. Don't beat yourself up. And many people, many successful people, they have rebuilt and actually rebranded yourself and segued into something brand new out of this, situation that the one door was closing. Just because that door is closing, that doesn't mean that you're not worthy. Doesn't mean that your skill set are not valuable. Doesn't mean that you are not valuable. You have tremendous value, and the new doors and look at opportunities. There's so many doors right now, right? There's so many companies hiring. Looking at some of the companies that are closing doors, but then there's more advanced and techy companies. And as we mentioned, STEM, a lot of those opportunities are opening up. And sometimes we may think, well, STEM is more for those younger, generations, so we're kind of on the older side, so to speak. It's too late for us to catch up. I don't agree with this.
No.
You can reinvent yourself at any age. So if nothing else, take it away. Reinventing yourself, see your value, and know you can start from scratch at any time.
Definitely. Gen Zers are coming. They're here. They're competitive. And so though you may think STEM definitely for the younger generation, no, not at all. Stay competitive, stay relevant, take these courses, because what you have work experience to your favor. You have a background. They're coming in from college. Stay competitive. You are relevant. So use the work experience that you have and the background that you have. Add a little bit of the relevancy and the tech, if you want, to your resume. And now you're that much more powerful. Now, now you're able to not only be able to speak the innovative side and the technology side, but you're able to have that knowledge, for business processes and how the corporate world works. And that puts you back in the map. Definitely.
I agree. I agree with you. This is great. I love this conversation, Gabriela. We have a note here from Isaiah is saying, when the door closes, another door always opens. This is a great subject with current condition in our country with all the layoffs. I agree, Isaiah. I think it's just being optimistic, believing in yourself, believing in your ability to adapt, to adjust, and as we segue into the conversation, also advance, right? In these new normals, in this conditions that we're all in, even with people that have jobs, they have this thoughts and fears in the back of our mind. What if my job dissipates tomorrow, right? So there's uncertainties with health conditions. There's some turmoil and some racial the situations. There's just a lot of conversations. People are adopting and rethinking their way of maybe how they were seeing certain things. There is uncertainties with businesses. Businesses are struggling to build the plans and try to see further than a week ahead. It's like, okay, how can we plan ahead? We just don't even know what's going to happen in the week. And the employees, and then those people that are without jobs trying to get back into workforce. And then some employees that aren't in the jobs, they have these fears in the back of our mind thinking, well, what if I'm going to be the one to let go tomorrow, because no one's guaranteed. In all of these uncertainties and all of these fears, how can we overcome them and actually advance? What are some of the tips you give us, Gabriela?
Definitely take advantage of your time. So a lot of social networking. Take advantage. LinkedIn is a great platform. Use it to your advantage. Connect with people that are like-minded, and then connect with people that are maybe not so much like you, that you can learn from different industries. I took a step in my career from the corporate side. I went to then the staffing side at one point, and I took that opportunity to learn so much from different industries, from so many departments, and I took that step because I also wanted to strengthen my core. I wanted to, as a professional, be able to speak to multiple departments. As an HR professional, I mean, I think it's essential to really know what's driving and the needs and essentials of each department and of each industry. So that's very important, and it was a wonderful growth opportunity for me as well. So I would encourage people to do the same, and use those connections and reach out to people. And if you see somebody that you admire, reach out to them and say, I admire, you're doing amazing work. Can we connect? I mean, very similar to how I did you, I believe. Can we connect and just learn from each other, and see how we can, gravitate and just kind of grow and learn. Online courses, I would definitely encourage that. A lot of education, to where you think you may want to take your career. And the same thing, just use LinkedIn, I think is very essential.
Yes, I agree. These are really good tips, Gabriella. And we touched on this before also, taking this building of relationships to the next level. I feel many of us, especially when we have jobs, we have a little bit of stability, although I think this new normal have shaken all of us. But we have this kind of I feel, in a comfort zone. And I look myself back at my own approach back several years ago, before I was a little bit more active on LinkedIn. I was just comfortable. I was just doing my work. I was doing the best I could do. I wanted to excel. I wanted to be recognized at my job. But as that peer of mine, I was pouring all of my energy into into what the team is doing, into my company, which is good. It's good to be dedicated and being great at what you do. Yet, I would say, in addition to that, give some energy to developing the relationships, just as you mentioned, that may be like-minded or maybe not like-minded, the diverse relationships in the industry or maybe outside of your industry, that will give you the opportunity to talk to different people, give you opportunity to exchange ideas with different people, and also create opportunities for you, maybe have a speaking engagement, or maybe have a presentation, or perhaps maybe do some type of a collaboration type, whether it's online, not too many in person nowadays, but it just opens up a little bit more of a way for you to be present out aside from your main team, which I believe, just from my personal experience, is really giving you a competitive edge, even within your company, because then you can bring fresh ideas. If you only assimilate, and if you only hang around and speak with the same type of people, you run out of ideas in a way. But when you expand your network, then you have the fresh ideas coming. You see what other people are doing, and then you can come back to your team and say, hey, by the way, did you think about this? Did you think about doing this? Like, in my example, I had a conversation with one of the recruitment companies, and it was in January, before COVID, they were doing their branding was really their service was doing the video interviews, recording the video interviews, and then presenting those video interviews with the details to their hiring managers within the team, within different departments. And that was a really great feedback for that. And I said, well, why don't we invent in that? We don't have too many hiring, but when we do hire, we hire for projects. And we hire overseas usually, and there's not many opportunities to do interview in person. So why don't we turn on the camera and do video interviews and record them, and then send them to hiring managers and say, here's your 3 candidates, the best of the best, and there's a video interview, and they get to see them, they get to see their interaction. So just those, gathering the ideas from the market, within the industry, outside of the industry, advancing yourself in your knowledge really will position yourself to really building your success, and being more agile in a way, and more flexible, as we are all being fluid. I think right nowadays is really important for the circumstances we're in, right?
Definitely. And if you put all of your energy, think about it this way, if you put all of your energy into just one bucket, what happens when something goes wrong? And then you have nothing else. that you've poured all of your energy into this and now you have to start from scratch. So I would say do yourself a favor and always network outside of your circle. Always reach out to more people. The more people you know, the better. And really know, not just, clicks on LinkedIn and how many people and connections you have on there. Actually have conversations and be on first name basis, so that if should anything ever happen and you then find yourself with a need for change in your career, then you have a huge network to go to and say, hey, this is where I am. Do you have any suggestions? Are you hiring? Do you know of somebody? And then you can do that, as well. Not necessarily have to start from scratch every single time something happens, because things happen.
Yes, yes, I agree. This is really valuable. And I would love to see if there's any questions from our audience today. If you have any question, please drop them in. We'll be happy to answer your question. And if you do find value, whether you're watching live right now or you're watching on replay later on, if you find value in this episode and this conversation, please do share it on your page with your network, and maybe give a couple points that was the most valuable and helpful to you. We'll appreciate that. We are here to just create this conversation, give you some tips that may be hopefully helpful to you, to help you adjust and adopt and advance. I feel we are all in this together. We're all embracing this new normal. I've heard this many times, but it is indeed. It is somewhat of a completely different circumstances we're in. Now companies are talking about, how do we return this remote workforce back into the office, right? So what does that look like? How does that look like for Accelerate?
It's a little bit challenging because we have people that really want to come back, and we've opened our offices back. So taking careful precautions and following the guidelines and capacity. However, it's very comfortable working from home. You no longer have to commute that, whether it be 40 minutes a day in the morning and then in the evening and have to deal with traffic and whatnot. So I think it definitely is a new normal. We were able to thankfully make the transition to remote very easily. However, there was a little bit of skepticism, and to see if performance would be the same when people are in their own home. But it just showed, and I think in many organizations it showed, that people were very productive, if not more, and still very engaged. So a lot of employers were trying to find a balance, because they were doing so many events and so many engagements, with their employees. So then you had some employees that were loving it, and you had other employees that were kind of saying like, okay, it's a little bit too much. I need to just get back to work. So finding that balance, but I think, it's something that we all just have to, adapt and again, adjust to this. But being able to work remote, I think is wonderful, having that opportunity to be able to focus a lot on, the here and now, instead of having to deal with the commute. Now, I will say, I did love my 40-minute commute in the morning and in the evening, because it was me time. That was my me time. I have children here, and so that was my quiet, whether it be listening to a podcast or something like that. So I think it's very essential that we don't lose that time. If you start your workday at 8 o'clock, wake up just as you would before, and you had to commute, and have that me time. Make yourself coffee, tea, whatever it is in the morning, and have that just alone time. Listen to a podcast, listen to music, put your headphones on, really have that alone time, and be able to take that in, because it is so essential right now. Mental illness and awareness is spiking. Divorce rates are spiking and doubling. I mean, there's just so much that has happened with COVID, and just being closed into our homes, and we need a time for ourselves. That's very important. So whether it be walking your dog in the evening and just putting your earpods on and having that moment, it's very essential that we just maintain that alone time.
Yes, I agree. The mental health is really, really and I think the remote work and being at home and being, so to speak, closed up to, interactions with our immediate family. I think everybody loved the family members, but in a way we were having this kind of a getaway moments, like you mentioned, commute. For me, it was the same. I was commuting, I was listening, I was, rejuvenating myself during that driving time. And it was a time of adjustment and adaptability that had to happen, to segue into working from home. And how does it look like with the kids being schooled at home, and all of these different aspects. And I feel now it's also going to be a transition for many people. Say, no, 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 I want to go to the office, I don't want to be home. And I feel some people may say, well, being home is not that bad. Maybe you can do part-time office, part-time home. And some people say, no, I'm really productive here. I love it. Especially, I think those single adults, or maybe just married adults without kids, they're like, no, no, we just get our job done, and we're good. But it really different for each and every person. Depends on circumstances, on where they're in life, and where they're in the family situation. Yet for each one of us, I think mental health is something that we do need to look into and focus on. I agree with you that it is so easy to get overwhelmed. It is so easy to get pulled in different directions, that we do have to take the quiet time and the me time and really see how we are, what are we feeling, what are we thinking, where we are, and even check in with our teams. Sometimes, being remote, you do check in, but more of on a professional, so to speak, team considerations or conversation, but maybe having a little bit more personal conversations as well. If you can afford that, I think this is really helpful as well. And just thinking that it's for everybody, and sometimes we do not know what other people are going through, right? We have no idea what's going on in their home. We have no idea what, like you said, divorce is spiking. Some people are really struggling in keeping their families together and their relationships together, and being forced into having no outlets whatsoever. So I think being kind nowadays is adding to this adjusting, adapting, and advancing, is being kind to yourself, to your family members, and to your coworkers, and to others, being understanding, and just thinking that the person may be going through things you have no idea what's happening, and extending that, understanding, extending this acceptance, and being helpful in any way you can go a long way.
Yeah, definitely. And when it comes to, I mean, that's something that I typically preach when it comes to leadership, because leadership does not necessarily mean that you are, in charge of the work being conducted. You're in charge of your team that's doing the job that is being, executed. So being able to connect with them and take good care of them. Leadership is not something that should be it's not for everybody. That's definite. But when embraced, and when it's something trainable, definitely. So when you take that in and you're able to know your team and connect with them, and not just speak about work, but be able to connect. And how is your family? There's many people that are infected and were affected by COVID. So, how is your father, and how is he doing, and how is he getting better? And, what can we do for you? How are you doing? Do you need, some time? Do you need help with your project? I think that is essential in this moment, because when we come out of it, those are the moments that are going to be remembered from your employees and from your team, is those moments where this person really supported me, this person felt very human and connected with me, and was with me, not just, cared about the numbers, essentially. That's very important.
Yes, I agree. The human connection and genuine care, is really important. I think from the employer perspective and from the leadership perspective, when you're in the role, in a leadership role, and when you convey not just to check in, just to check the mark, that you checked in with your team,
Mhm.
but to check in because you genuinely care, because you genuinely want to know, because you genuinely want to help, and knowing that the how people feel, after your interaction is really, as you mentioned, is going to be remembered, right? And I feel that when you have the leaders that truly show the care for their teams, uh, you create the environment of trust, you create the environment of safety, and you create the environment of high performance. Because then, as an employee, I would say, yes, I know I am trusted. I know I am safe. I know I want to do the best I can do for my team, for my company. I want to go extra mile. Because that was really a foundation of relationships, and building the relationships between in the workforce, between the team, is really a foundation for high performance, I believe. And we have a question from Hosea. Um, uh, we have a question from Hosea Gabrieli saying, with the current restrictions on work visas for hiring processes, how do you corporate companies adjusting to hire talent? Do you have any insight on this, Gabriela?
Sure. That definitely affects us very deeply. I think we need to, again, re strategize. And if you are seeking a talent that is not accessible, then you need to evaluate and look into your training. What are the core values and knowledge that you need, and what can be trained to be able to do the job? Having, there are restrictions right now with the visas. What's Who are being affected are the ones that are not in the U.S. at this time. So consulate. There is no new stamping that's happening. If people are in an OPT status or an F1 status, they are able to proceed with an H-1B filing. However, if you're outside of the U.S., then that's what's being restricted and affected at this time. So looking at the resources and people that we have close to us, and is it something that we can train, and as an organization, what can we do to create that talent pool? Again, we had to do that ourselves as well. Otherwise, we'd be providing a service without having the manpower to provide the service, right? So we had to create that talent. So as a corporation, as a company, you have to kind of then see what we can do to be able to compensate with those limitations at this time. I foresee that it will get better sometime next year. I don't think that's going to be um, you know, too long. But demands and restrictions with visas have been difficult year after year. It's just been more. They're either more expensive. The wage is gone higher to make it more restricted and difficult, or there are restrictions in granting these visas. So we definitely have to look at all plan Bs to be able to move forward with the business.
Yes, I agree. And I also believe that companies adjusting and looking at those plans and saying, okay, we have this talent that we were planning to bring on, and now we have to, adjust again, adapt, and rethink on how can we source the talent differently. And an idea, I think, from the administration and the president is that more Americans having opportunities for jobs, and for some certain skill set, there's a very shortage of the pool, of the skill set here in the United States. So coming back to what you mentioned, Gabriela, it's building the training and then also reassessing your needs. But the businesses do need to run, right? And you cannot run your business, run your systems without the talent running it. So it's I think it's a unique ways and how each and every company is gonna reassess what their talent gaps are and what those restrictions may create, what gaps they may create, and how can we bring the different type of resources, and how can we perhaps looking in the US based talent to navigate through that and still be able to have the talent that we need to have in place
Yeah.
on time. So yeah,
Or
and
perhaps looking offshore, maybe keeping the that offshore if you really seek that and it's not here. Again, what's being restricted is those folks coming into the U.S. But if it's that crucial, then maybe business offshore, contracting offshore is something that you can do. So really looking at the different options.
yeah, I agree. And as far as offshore, we've had the situation too that we had to find a way that a very valuable worker was not able to enter the US, and then find a way in how can we set up for that work. Can that work be completely done remote, and how can we set it up on that particular individual that has a skill set and the knowledge and the systems and everything that we need to have to run the project smoothly. Can we utilize that workforce from overseas, and not to go hire new people and retrain them, which will take time and effort, and it will affect the timeline and then requirement for the project to be done. So there are different, I think, creative scenarios that the companies are looking at in how to navigate through that requirement and through that restriction. Well, thank you so much for today, Gabrielle. It's been a pleasure speaking with you today. I think you've shared so many wonderful nuggets and wisdom and tips with each one of us, and I hope that the listeners have received a lot of value from this conversation. Gabriella, anything that you would like to share with us before we close out?
Sure. Just love yourself, take time for yourself, and love one another. We're definitely all in this together. So seek support. You're not alone, and connect with many people and network. So take advantage of your resources and adapt and grow.
I love this. Thank you so much. And I see you next time, Gabrielle.
Thank you so much.
Wow, this was a wonderful conversation, and I hope you all enjoy that. I believe that by sharing our experiences, by sharing our knowledge, we can certainly support each other. We can help each other grow. We can help each other advance, and we can change this world to be a better place. I cannot wait to see you next time. You have an awesome day.